you've given words to our silence, and it's heartbreaking to have a realization that it's a lot more common than you thought.
Sadly, this is the reality of a lot of states in our country even right now.
Shrinking identities to accommodate the men in your life and sometimes the women in your life, it's clearly hit home. There are so many men who are stuck in a toxic relationship and they're at the receiving end. The gender lines had blurred for them, and they were able to see it as a film which pits a narcissist against a doormat.
Filmmakers will wash their hands of any kind of accountability and say, but this is reality, we are only showing reality. And I have a problem with that.
Do I believe every filmmaker should accept that responsibility, should own that responsibility? There should be cinema made from both sides, from all sides, heck. And there should be discussion and debate. And there should be discourse so that we all hear each other out. A film becomes a great excuse to start a conversation.
Social media is just sometimes a cesspool of trolling. You and your family have also been subject to a lot of that abuse. How do you protect your peace? How do you protect your mental health?
When you know that you make a film, it's going to open 50 crores on day one, and your producer is going to make a profit no matter what, I would love to get out of social media. Until that day, it is a very important tool for us.
Word of advice that you would give to a budding filmmaker who's stepping into the industry now?
It's great to have dreams in your eyes, and it's great to be excited. It is such a volatile profession, and 90% of your career isn't really in your hands.
Hello and welcome to the Shezzi M Show. This is a podcast that highlights the vagaries of 21st century living and how to hack it. For the 3.5 people who are wondering why you sounding like this, like Amitabh Bachchan. Sorry, I have, a bad cold and it's the season really. You know me, I'm Shezzi, your friendly neighborhood Shezzi. And my guest today is somebody truly, truly discerning. He's an actor, he's a writer, he's a director, he's really done it all. But I'll tell you one thing, he's also somebody whose content or his brand of storytelling is so beautifully intentional. Recently, there was a film made in Telugu which has really caught a lot of eyeballs, and it's called The Girlfriend. And I must confess, I can't handle content very well, but I took the time, I watched the film. I was deeply moved by the film, and I'm so grateful because I wrote to this gentleman and he has acquiesced. He's right here with us right now. He's somebody who has won a national award for his directorial debut, Chila Sao. And without further ado, allow me to introduce to you Rahul Ravindran. Hi sir, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Very well.
I love that line, by the way. He's someone whose work is beautifully intentional. That was lovely. Thank you.
You know why I said that, sir? Is because...
Please call me Rahul.
Yes. Rahul, the reason why I said that is because I understand that, the business of filmmaking requires you to find that sweet spot between, weekends and box office numbers, etc., and still be true to your craft. Right. And I feel like with this particular film, since we're talking about The Girlfriend, you really straddled both the words effortlessly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I said that I can't handle content because I get very triggered. Okay. But if you haven't already watched The Girlfriend, do watch it. I felt like a goddess towards the end of the film myself.
Lovely. I mean, you couldn't have put it better than it. It's very gratifying when I keep hearing things like that from people who watched the film about how much it resonated with them. And I've had so many. I think the most commonly used word is that it was healing, it was therapeutic, and it's just so gratifying when you hear things like that. So yeah.
Where did the story come from?
The story came from something I'd seen in my own life, second-hand experience of something. And it was basically a friend of mine who was in college, and he had a girlfriend, and we didn't know her much, just, bhabhi, hi, and things like that. And he's a guy's guy, he's a brother's brother, he's an amazing guy. You call him in the middle of the night and say, I have a problem. He catch the next flight and be here in front of you. That kind of guy. He had a girlfriend, and for some reason, we don't know why from her side, she broke up with him. And he was a bit of a mess, and he spent the next 2-3 nights just constantly drinking and raging and breaking down alternately. Just smashing things in his room, and then the next minute he'd be crying his heart out. And then a few days later, sometime in the middle of the night, he came to my room, had 4 of his other friends with him, and he said, "Come, I need to take you somewhere." And I said, "Where?" And he said, "Come." And he took us to the student gents toilet and took out a permanent marker, wrote her number on the wall, and on top of it wrote "for sex contact." And he turned around, and I remember the look on his face, bloodshot eyes from all the crying and sleeplessness. I mean, knew that right there at that point, there is nothing we could have said to him that would appeal to his rational mind, that could have assuaged him from not doing what he was doing. And we also knew that if we said something that would antagonize him, and if he started looking at us as villains, then there would be nobody to control his behavior. That kind of stayed in my head for a very long time. And then a few years later, I start noticing this movement in across South Indian cinema, and I'd say in the North too, where Devdases were slowly graduating to soup boys. And I've said this in other interviews as well. I think the difference between the two of them is that a Devdas drinks himself to death and destroys his own life, whereas soup boy does that and goes beyond and says, "You are the cause of my suffering, and therefore I will make you suffer for it." And it was being viewed through a lens of righteous revenge, and either advertently or inadvertently, certainly being normalized and sometimes being glorified. And it would elicit a lot of cheers and whistles and claps in theaters that I was sitting and watching these films in. And that's kind of when this was about 11, 12 years back maybe. That's when I said, I want to make a film where I turn the camera around, just focus on the other person, and hopefully it'll make the same people feel uncomfortable rather than, clap and whistle. And weirdly, it was Vikram's character that came to my mind first, because in my head, I understand a Vikram at that age when you're neither child nor man yet, where your personality is not fully developed yet, where your worldviews aren't fully crystallized yet. And if you've been raised in a certain kind of an environment, and if all the art and pop culture that you consume growing up has constantly reinforced that a certain kind of behavior is okay, what chance does that boy have? He is going to be like that, right? And the idea was that as I kept growing, older and hopefully maturing in life, I realized he doesn't stand a chance of being any other way. And I said, I want to make a film where everything else was imaginary. Everything around it, the characters, everything else was imaginary. And I said, I want to make a film where someone like a Vikram who thinks, I'm better than my father's generation. I've never raised a hand in anger. I've never abused you verbally. And I've never cheated on you. I am the world's best boyfriend. What possible reason could you have for breaking up with me other than the fact that you are a BIT blank blank?
It's okay to say CH also.
Right, it's a podcast, so yeah. So I know that these Vikrams, they find it very difficult, given how they've been raised in a certain cocoon, to understand from the girl's point of view why she might be unhappy in the same relationship that they share, and that despite the fact that it's supposed to be a shared experience, how they have a very different experience of it from the boy. And I said, then I want to make a film from the girl's point of view, so that Vikrams hopefully go back home and reflect and understand their boomas better. Whether they change or not is not in my hands, but sure, I can prod them to reflect, prod them to introspect and think. And the film kind of came from there, and everything started falling in place from there. And I had obviously observed a lot of such girls in my life, a lot of such boys in my life, and a lot of such relationships in my life. And yeah, it all started flowing from there.
You mentioned cocoon. I feel like it's called Rajapita syndrome. But yeah.
Well, yeah.
But before this questioning goes any further, I really have to ask you this, Rahul. What happened after that friend of yours wrote the number? Did you erase it out from there? Please tell me you did.
It was taken down, but here's the weird thing. I don't know how. I've never been inside one, so I don't know how the walls of public or commonly accessed girls' toilets look. I can assure you that it's the most common thing in the world if you've been inside a boys' toilet. Not necessarily writing someone's phone number, but like for sex contact followed by a phone number is so common.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of the times it is actual sex workers soliciting work, which is a different ballgame altogether. But some of the times it's probably these revenge scribbles.
Exactly.
And not specifically that, but you would very often see walls of boys' toilets filled with sketches or drawings, or sometimes even, something like
Photos
X and X or so and so loves so and so. I'm like, really not the ideal place to be exhibiting your love for someone, but that happens too.
Hey, as long as you're not destroying a heritage structure.
Well, yeah, but these things are very common. I don't know if they're still common in college toilets and other toilets, but I still see so many of these scribbles sometimes when I visit a public place or go to a public toilet and things like that. So yeah, it is what it is.
But I'm so that scene, and I'm not going to give the scene because spoilers. I don't want to be that person.
So you know where a particular scene came from now.
Yes.
It was
I do.
dramatized improvisation of
and it
of
was
that,
it was well done, I'll tell you, because see, the thing is, and I understand my privilege as I say this, because I couldn't identify or relate to why is she so like this, why is she so calm, and why is she so quiet, and why is she so, but I'm so grateful, because I remember in my radio days I used to go to colleges and talk to women, and I remember this one common thing that they had, that if my boyfriend is not beating me up, or if he's not being ridiculously possessive,
very grateful.
Yeah, he's not, he doesn't love me enough, and it used to get
Oh,
me
that's even worse. Yeah.
so riled up.
Yeah.
It used to get me, I mean, if he's not slapped me around a little, that means he doesn't care for me. Where is the passion in the relationship? And I'm like, so I couldn't identify. And then at the end of the day, I also realized that sadly, this is the reality of a lot of states in our country even right now. And we're in 2025.
You should see the responses I've been getting non-stop for the film. So many people telling me one commonality, one common theme has been, you've given words to our silence.
Yes.
And it's heartbreaking to have a realization that it's a lot more common than you thought.
Yes.
There are many more boomers out there than you thought. And for a lot of women, they reach out and they talk about how they deal with Vikrams in varying degrees.
Yes.
But they deal with Vikrams not just in romantic relationships or within the confines of a marriage, but also everywhere. It could be a boss, it could be a neighbor, it could be an elder brother, it could be a cousin, it could be a controlling parent.
Yes.
And sometimes it's women. Women themselves, especially of a certain generation, are conditioned to be the torchbearers of patriarchy.
Absolutely.
They keep handing it out from one generation to another.
Yes.
So this theme of not being allowed the space to express your identity fully, this theme of shrinking identities to accommodate the men in your life and sometimes the women in your life, it's clearly hit home a lot more than I would have wanted it to a lot more people than I would have wanted it to. So yeah, it's so many women come and say, it might not be in a romantic relationship, but we've all dealt with a Vikram somewhere or the other. So yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, there is a scene towards the end where I think she's just had enough. And she comes out and says, so I've had sex with this guy. What are you going to do about it? And, this is so reminiscent. And in fact, the minute I saw this, I thought I want to invoke the writer in you and request that you do this. I don't know if you've heard about the Giselle Pellicot rape case in France, where the woman's husband, very 60-year-old woman, and for decades her husband was drugging her, raping her, inviting his friends over and shooting the whole thing.
Oh my.
And in a court of law, she made the perpetrators watch this, and she said, shame must change sides. So please play those
so
videos.
powerfully put.
Yes. And I kept thinking, if there is a filmmaker I interview who can do justice, it would be Rahul Ravindran. You have to make, you've already touched upon it with Booma's story.
What you're telling me, I don't even know what to say.
But you must do a little, I'm hoping at one point, even off the camera, that we have this chat and you do take this up, where I think with Booma's coming of age moment and with her saying, I am just done.
Shift the blame.
Yes.
Shift the shame.
The shame must change sides. And she did that in the film.
And the way each theatre I visited erupted for that line. And to see so many men clap and cheer wildly.
Oh, that happened?
Line. Oh, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. I will tell you this. There have been so many men who've reached out to me saying, what an incredibly well-made film. And there have been so many men who reached out to me saying, I saw myself in Booma. Because there are so many men who are the victims of a toxic relationship.
Yes.
It's not, obviously the majority is the other way around, but there are so many men who are stuck in a toxic relationship and they're at the receiving end. And it was beautiful for me to see that the gender lines had blurred for them, and they were able to see it as a film which pits a narcissist against a doormat. And they were able to identify themselves in Bhuma and say, you know what, your film gave me the strength to stand up for myself, speak up, and tell my girlfriend or my wife that this is not going to do. If we need this to work, you're going to have to change yourself. And that was beautiful. And the sheer volume of messages I've had from men that reached out to me and said, Anna, I didn't know there was a Vikram inside me. And I promise you, I'm going to make an effort to be a better boyfriend or a better husband. And it's beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful to see that. And the sheer number of men that I watched clap and cheer wildly for that line in theaters, it just made my day. It's...
I've got goosebumps and I'm going to ugly cry, so I'm going to try and curb myself. But yes, thank you. And in fact, I think I after I saw the film, I sent you a message that I have so many things to tell you about the film.
Right.
But for now, all I want to say is thank you for making it.
And thank you for that. That made my day.
Truly phenomenal. And I'll tell you, it's so refreshing because there's a lot of times that filmmakers will wash their hands of any kind of accountability and say, but this is reality. We are only showing reality. And I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that because it very well might be reality. But do you think that you as a filmmaker or a storyteller also have a responsibility to see how, because you come from such a position of influence and power.
Right.
Do you not have a responsibility to shape the minds of the people who are consuming your content?
There's two ways to answer that question. First, I shall answer it personally. I personally think yes. The second angle of that question is that do I believe every filmmaker should accept that responsibility, should own that responsibility? Any kind of art, not just cinema, it is a form of self-expression,
Yes.
right? And we all keep evolving. We're all fluid. Our personalities are fluid. Our thought processes are fluid. Art is fluid. The context in which we make art is fluid. So if someone is bursting with a story to tell, wants to come out and express themselves, and they're not politically as aware as I am at my age because they're a lot younger, or that's the environment that shaped them, or if someone refuses to accept that responsibility, I think it's a deeper, more nuanced debate. And I don't want to force or shove my take on this down their throat because I'm the kind of guy that believes that I believe in freedom of expression. And when I do believe in freedom of expression, I believe it must exist on both sides. I think there should be cinema made from both sides, from all sides, heck. And there should be discussion and debate. And there should be discourse so that we all hear each other out. A film becomes a great excuse to start a conversation. Any form of art becomes a great excuse to start a conversation. And I believe conversations must be had, hopefully respectfully, but that rarely happens. And we can all choose to agree to disagree with each other. And yet it's important that that conversation is had and we listen to the other side. We hear the other side out. Now coming to myself, probably after my parents and probably as much as my teachers, art has had a massive influence on me growing up. It's not just cinema, but mostly cinema. Because I do belong to a generation where cinema has basically been the most popular and the most powerful medium of art for the last 125 years. It's waning. There are other mediums of art that are now taking over, short format, internet content and things like that. But cinema has been the most powerful art form for the last 125 years because it is an amalgamation of all art forms. There's poetry in cinema, there's literature in cinema, there's art in cinema, there's everything in cinema, there's theater in cinema. As a human being who was so massively influenced by art growing up, art taught me empathy. Art taught me what my own prejudices were. Art taught me what my biases were. Art taught me to look beyond my cocoon. Art, I am very sure, helped me become a better human being, and it continues to do so. I would like to believe that I continue to keep growing and evolving, and art has a major role to play in that. So for someone who's been so massively influenced by art, I certainly think I have a responsibility as an artist because I was influenced by art, and I would like to think what I make, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, will have an influence on someone watching it. So I certainly do like to own up to that responsibility. Now, here's the thing, right? What I believe is right today, I may grow out of it, or I might start seeing the world differently, or I might learn new perspectives and realize even that was problematic. So, filmmakers and artists should be allowed to come and express themselves. And I don't think they should be cancelled. As problematic as one side believes their art is, what should happen is discourse and debate and discussion. That is what I believe in.
And accountability, maybe?
Like I said, so accountability comes from that, which is why critiquing of art has such an important social value. And just like we mustn't shut down artists, as problematic as we might think sitting where we are today, someone's art is, I believe they should come out and make their cinema. Similarly, we shouldn't be shutting down our critics either. Critiquing of art, which is why plays such an important function in society, such an important role in society. And both must be able to hear each other out.
Absolutely.
And the general public that consumes art must be able to hear both sides out and make up your own mind. Listen to critics from either side of the table. Watch artists from either side of the table. I feel that is healthy. And accountability, when we start talking about accountability as a concept, as a blanket macro concept, I feel it's very dicey. I feel it must, like how I believe there are certain topics like, what happens inside my bedroom should stay in my bedroom. What my faith and my spirituality, I feel is like a very personal sphere. I don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about it in public. That's just me, right? As an individual.
And in any case, it's nobody else's problem, right?
It isn't, and it's just me. So similarly, I feel an accountability that you should, or you should have as an artist is very personal. You set your own guidelines. You said, sure, I do believe that every artist must constantly ask themselves that question, but I'm not going to force it down somebody else's throat. I definitely force it down my own throat. I keep telling myself, you are accountable. There is a responsibility. You are responsible for how your art is shaping perception, is shaping mindsets, especially of those that are still at a very impressionable age. And I'd like to take that accountability. So with me, I'm very strict with myself. I'm very uncompromising and unforgiving with myself. But it is what it is. So it's a very nuanced topic. So.
And I'm also very grateful that you spoke about there should be scope for discourse and discussion. In fact, I teach yoga, and for us, tark vitark, logical debate is so important. And it's not just asana, right? But it's so important that you are able to duke it out, discuss. You should be open to, okay, this is my opinion. Can you convert my opinion? And if you cannot, then, I think it's healthy. There's no doubt about it.
Consuming this helps bolster creative, critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Critical thinking is a key aspect of any human being growing and maturing. At some age or the other, we should all develop an inclination for it. And a discussion of art or a work of art is a great way to start. It's something you like, it's something you're interested in, it's something you're passionate about. And hey, there's a discussion going on about a film I watched or a book I read. And either actively or passively participating in that discussion improves your own critical thinking. And I feel that's important for all of us.
I feel compelled, therefore, to now ask you, what are your thoughts on separating the art from the artist?
Yeah, very interesting debate, isn't it? The truth is that I keep thinking about it a lot. Every time this comes up in discussion, that I see it on social media or somebody's talking about it. And the honest truth is that I haven't come up with an answer. I don't have a definitive answer. I don't even have a code of conduct that is now sacrosanct for me in my own head. Like I told you, I don't believe in cancel culture. I believe all kinds of stories should be told, because the day we believe blindly that only we are right, I feel we are as dangerous as the other side.
I agree.
So for me, now there is problematic artists,
and
then there are outright criminals, right? Those who've been indicted by law. No, I keep asking myself this, like I have a wife and she takes a very strict stand on these things. There are if she knows beforehand, half the times she's going and singing a song, she doesn't even know which song, which movie, who she's singing for. But if she does know sometimes, like there are certain lyricists or certain singers, and she typically takes a stand and doesn't sing with them or their songs or whatever. And I keep telling her, the whole point of your fight for the last 7 years, the whole point of the Me Too movement was to ensure that there are safer workplaces for the women, and that you don't lose out on opportunities because of certain people. And I keep telling her, as long as you're not the one hiring somebody, as long as you're not the one writing a paycheck in their name, I don't think you should have a problem, because why would you lose out on work? You did nothing wrong, right? You're not the perpetrator, so why should you lose out on work is what I always tell her. But she says, no, somehow I'm not comfortable. I was like, okay, that's your personal call. You need to decide for that for yourself. Fair enough. And I have a lot of respect for it.
I promise you, we as a people have a tremendous amount of respect for that. It's not easy.
It isn't. I know the sacrifices she makes day in and day out. That aside, I think, like, for example, a past work of art, right? It could be, it could be a film, for example. Film's a great example because cinema brings so many people together to make a film, right? There's usually a team of anywhere between 150 to 300, 400, 500 people working on a film. Now, let us say the director or the actor or somebody involved in that film if it's problematic, sure, I feel like we should discuss and debate and call it out without abusing. We should call it out. But I would like to still go see that film, is my take on it. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, is my take on it. And I have the privilege of saying this as a man. And it's a massive luxury in itself. So I'm perfectly okay with another man or a woman feeling very differently about it. I don't shove my opinion down their throat. I live my life that way. Now, take a past film, for example. Take Annie Hall. There's so many theories about Woody Allen and everybody split. And some people, I don't know, some people take his side, some people don't. And he's, I think, been effectively cancelled, or maybe not. He's still making films.
See, that's the whole thing. Men don't get effectively cancelled, do they?
They don't. Now, here's the thing. Now, there's a film made called Annie Hall. Annie Hall features the lead actress of that film's best performance of her career, right? There's probably a composer who's worked on that film, and it's his best film in his filmography. Now, there were a dozen other actors that were hired, and they all probably turned in great performances. Now, there are other technicians. There could be a cinematographer of that film, and it's probably his greatest calling card. On one hand, it feels wrong to erase a film from collective public memory. On one hand, it feels wrong to erase that film from history, from archives, because and cancel it altogether. Like, I can't judge a person who watches an Annie Hall because there are so many other people who put in their heart and soul and sweat and blood into that film, and it's probably their greatest work of art. So it feels wrong to me. I haven't made up my mind. It feels wrong to me. But at the same time, I understand that when you say, hey, but I'm able to separate the art from the artist and still consume their work without viewing it from that lens, I understand that it is creating a deep-rooted ecosystem, or rather an environment where these artists are repeatedly being enabled. They are being allowed to get away with it without making compromises, without making sacrifices, without so much as getting punished for what they've done. So at that point, it feels problematic to me. So I still haven't been able to resolve these two, opposing opinions I have about it. So I still don't know. So what I've learned to do is, with age, I've realized that there are increasingly more and more things that I just can't seem to make up my mind about. And I've learned to live with it.
I think it's fantastic. And I'm so grateful that because both points are valid. And I'm in total understanding of what you're saying. Not that I'm offering advice, but at the end of the day, also just protect your peace and do your best is what I
suppose, yeah. I am that guy. End of the day, push comes to shove, I protect my peace. But I know so many people who, at the cost of their own peace, feel there is a fight worth fighting and they must continue to fight it. And I'll build temples for them, I'll build statues for them, but I can't do that.
I hear you.
Yeah.
In fact, I must talk about this. Every time you make a statement, social media is just sometimes a cesspool of trolling. Of course, it has its benefits as well, but a lot of times, there's just so much hate mongering, such vile, rubbish that's being peddled.
Really
How
tough
do you?
sometimes.
Yeah. So I know that you and your family have also been subject to a lot of that abuse. How do you protect your peace? How do you protect your mental health?
There is no way really to protect your peace. The only way to do it is get off it. But I do work in an industry where you need to go out and promote your film. You need to tell people that you made a film. You need to tell people after it's released that, hey, here's a bunch of people who watched it and who like it. And social media is simply the fastest way to do it. Today, post-COVID especially, we don't live in a world anymore where we can say social media is just a bubble. It barely has a real world effect. I think especially positively, social media has a massive real world effect today in my own industry. I feel like if there are films that are coming out that aren't hyped pre-release, that don't, carry like the potential for a 50 crore opening, social media really helps us take the news out to people that, hey, it's actually a good film. There are a bunch of people who watch it and like it. Like in our case, social media massively helped us grow from one day to another to another to another. Whatever box office we did came largely because we, after a point, people were promoting the film on social media. It wasn't even us. There were women watching it and coming back and championing the film. They took it upon their own shoulders and they were telling other women, do not miss this film, go watch it and things like that. There are still some people, when you reach a certain stage, when you know that you make a film, it's going to open 50 crores on day one and your producer is going to make a profit no matter what, I would love to get out of social media. Until that day, it is a very important tool for us. And someone like me can't afford to get out of social media, lock, stock and barrel. It's not possible. Also, I am a sports freak. There's very few things I love in my life as much as sports, both playing as well as following.
Oh, what sport do you play?
Almost every sport under the sun, both follow as well as play. Most regularly, tennis, cricket, and I used to play table tennis a lot when I was still in Chennai, but not anymore. So yeah, there's a bunch of sports these days, pickleball and things like that, because a lot of my friends keep playing the sport.
Correct.
So social media is the fastest delivery mechanism for sports news. If you love sports and if you love following sports very closely, you can't afford to not be on social media. But I do keep considering sometimes of deleting my account, creating an anonymous account and just following. And it's not just sports news, be it political news, financial news, tech news, entertainment news, whatever it is the fastest delivery mechanism for news. And lots of the time you're hearing it from the horse's mouth.
And it's and I shouldn't say this because I'm a media person also, but it's also a relatively credible source of news compared to media right now.
The problem with that is that I agree, but the problem with that is that it's no more news. Social media has made it a culture of opinions rather than news. That's the dangerous part of it. And then it depends on which opinions you're being exposed to. In fact, more crucially, which opinions your algorithm is exposing you to and which opinions you're vulnerable to and how you're getting brainwashed. But that aside.
No, but listen, Rahul, sir, the journalism currently is also like that only, sadly.
It is.
There's nothing dispassionate and dispensation of information anymore.
No,
right?
At all. There is no neutral conveying of news. Everything is tinged with an agenda. From all sides. I blame my own side too. But that aside, so yeah, it's very difficult to get out of social media because of these factors.
Yeah.
So given that I am on social media, it's just impossible to keep your peace other than just getting used to it. You know how they say, give it enough time and you'll get used to, I was just saying this on another interview too, you get used to a free fall from a skyscraper. So just give it enough time, you'll learn to develop a thick skin, you'll learn to not be affected by it.
Have you developed a thick skin?
I relatively, for sure, a largely thick skin now, but it still does affect you. Of course it does, at least for those few seconds. You read something incredibly hurtful about you from a practical stranger who you've never done anything wrong to. Just the sheer senselessness of that violence I don't mean physical violence, but
No, it is violence.
like,
Call it what it is.
I've never met you in my life. I've never done anything wrong to you. I've never cheated you of money, didn't rob you of your job. I didn't hurt any of your family members.
I made good film also for you to watch.
And why would you be so nasty? It always rankles you for a few seconds. How can it not? But the older I get and the more I've been on social media, I think it rankles me a lot less in terms of both intensity and how long it rankles me. It is what it is.
I mean, this is the part where I get all preachy and say, it's not a you problem, it's a their problem. Whatever is bothering them in their lives is what is coming out on you.
This is what I've been telling myself too, and this is how I've learned to deal with it. And yet, for a few seconds at least, especially some of them are just like, I remember I got used to, luckily for the longest time, people would rarely troll me or hate on me or abuse me. And then off late that started too. Largely after this film's release, there is, I've been getting so much love and affection from so many people, but there is also one section that hates the fact that I made this film and what this film stands for.
But you know what they say about publicity? Any publicity is good publicity.
No, but I'd rather not have people coming and abusing me and just throwing random hate at me. But anyway, so yeah, I've gotten used to it the longer I've been here. But well, it is what. But for the longest time, what used to be very difficult for me was watching people abuse a loved one. And in my case, my wife. And it took me a really long time to get used to that. The immediate instinct would be to go to war. And you can't. These are faceless, nameless people. You don't know where they're sitting. You can't do anything about it. And you feel so powerless. So then slowly you're made to get used to that. So
there was I must tell you this. There was a time when I was pregnant with my child. And I'm ardently stalking, following / whatever your wife. And I'll just be like, everything, like, comment, etc., etc. And there was a time when there was a lot of hate coming at her, and she was just being a fiery goddess about it.
There was a time.
I know. Okay. But for me, from my hormonal fragile state, I was getting so upset and so riled up and so triggered as a woman. And I was just like, what nonsense. And I think I even wrote to her and saying, I'm so sorry that you have to go through all of this. And, I was just getting me so upset. And I don't even, I've met her once fleetingly. I've spoken to her on the phone once. To live with a beloved one and to see them go through that, I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
I cannot.
Yeah. But I think the flip side of that is that because she's so unfiltered and outspoken about what she believes in, on one hand, the hate and the abuse, but on the other hand, I know that there is an army.
Yes, there is.
Of people who will, go to war for her.
I have been coaching and counseling myself that we will not discuss your wife. This is your conversation because I'll become one simpering fangirl.
I'm happy to discuss the one human being I love more than anybody else in this world. Of course, my 2 babies now, we both together love them more than we love each other. But yeah.
But tell me now that you're, daddy to the cutest 2, has that changed the way you tell stories?
It's an interesting question.
I ask only interesting questions, Rahul.
I haven't thought about it. I think I need to reflect and introspect before I have an answer to that. The truth also is that I wrote The Girlfriend much before they were born. I had written the first two drafts of my next film before they were born. The one I'm going to be making after that is a film that I'm writing right now. So yeah, maybe now I'll know. Because, once you're done writing a film, largely you're going and making what's on paper already. So I don't know if there was any influence of having become a father on The Girlfriend. But there was this beautiful phone call I received from an actor. I suppose it's okay to say who it is, but it was a personal phone call he had made. This very big...
so say not now if you said it.
It just feels wrong.
Fair enough. No, don't.
It was a personal phone call he had made.
Of course.
A very big actor from Tamil, who's also very beloved here.
See now, why you're doing like that
okay,
now?
I'm sorry about
Cheppandi.
it. Yeah. So he'd made a phone call and he said he's a father to a daughter himself. And he had watched the film on Netflix and he called me and said, you couldn't have written a more beautiful love letter to your future, to your daughter's future self.
Oh, lovely.
And I was like, wow. When you put it like that, I'm so proud of the film. I'm so glad I went and made this film. So yeah. I suppose, yeah. I'm sure there is some sort of... I, for sure, have changed as a human being. Markedly. So, that being the case, when that new human being is sitting and writing a story, I suppose there are bound to be subconscious changes creeping in to how I write. So
Wonderful.
how I view the world has changed, how I view people has changed, what my priorities have drastically changed.
Has your threat perception changed? Because I'm hyper
It's
aware now.
heightened pro max. Yeah, you said you're also the mother of a 3.5-year-old. So yes, and just little things like I spend even 10 rupees today. I feel like I'm spending their future money. So yeah, it's like some of the things that I used to get really excited buying or going and spending money on, things that I couldn't afford in my childhood that I can afford now. Suddenly, there's barely any interest in them.
No, but spend a little bit.
I'd rather save that money for their future. So yeah.
Fair enough.
No, I've just genuinely lost interest in them. It's not even like I'm making a sacrifice. It's like, I don't know, I don't even feel motivated to buy them anymore. So yeah.
I have to ask this because I see this happening in my own household. But are you an absolute sucker to your babies? Because I am the one who's very disciplined, but my husband, he'll come after a long day, he's passed out on the sofa literally, and my cheeky monkey will go and say, "Hey daddy, come here." I said, first of all, I have not taught you to say "Hey daddy," and this guy will just "Yes baby, I'm like, you don't have to get up and behave like a slave." So and I think it's a daddy thing, and also because I have a little girl.
Right.
So is that the case with you, or?
I think we take turns. When she's being a softie one day, then I try and be as disciplinarian as I can.
Good cop,
I'm
bad
clearly
cop.
not very good at it. But I can be firm with them sometimes, but it never goes into the territory of screaming at them and things like that. It's more like Sharvas, Dripta. That's it. That's the extent of my disciplining them.
So cute.
But yeah. So I think we take turns. When I know that they're doing something to their mother or behaving a certain way with their mother, I know it is my responsibility to step in at that point. And I know I'd be letting her down and their future selves down if I don't step in at that point. So then I step in. Otherwise, I'm never the one stepping in. So yeah.
Note to my editor, cut this and send this to my husband.
Oh my God, I don't want to get into trouble with your husband, but no. Hey, I no hate, man.
Cannot take a stand. He'll just look at me and say, "Let it be." No, I mean, what do you mean by "let it be"? No.
No, sometimes if they're screaming and throwing a tantrum, and I've been reading a lot of essays and books that say that if your kid is expressive enough where they're able to scream and shout and throw a tantrum, it's a rite of passage, and it's a healthy sign of development where they feel
Safe to
there's clearly
express.
an environment where they're feeling safe to express themselves. But sometimes if I feel like they're really throwing a tantrum and it's either at my wife or if she doesn't have the energy, then I do step in. So
That's lovely because I'm of the same school of thought. But how to explain to Tata Garu about this?
Ah.
It's great. You're supposed to allow. No, what nonsense.
I suppose that's their job, that's their role. So I guess you need that also, the ultra good cop in their life as well. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I suppose every child, when we're disciplining them, they're obviously getting frustrated and annoyed at us. They also need that one outlet where they feel safe enough to say, no matter what, this person's going to take my side. So I guess
Or this person's going to not judge me for behaving badly. And I think that's why mummies become punching bags also inadvertently. They'll throw a tantrum, they'll behave badly at the end of the day. If I'm correcting my daughter and she's howling her guts out also, she'll come only to me for comfort also.
Right.
Because I'm her safe space and she knows that it's okay. She can behave a certain way with me, And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, my children, of course, have two maternal figures in their lives. One their actual mother and one our nanny as well. So
Oh, yes. You mentioned a little while ago about some project that you are currently working on. Not going to ask you about it, but I do want to know what is the creative process involved when it comes to your writing.
it's pretty straightforward and simple. I always write at home. I'm yet to write a screenplay anywhere other than the entertainment room that we call in our house. It's a room where the TV is the biggest TV screen is, and it's the room that I watch all the sports and the movies. It's also the room with the library in it. So
But wait, with two kids at home.
So that's the
How?
thing. The script that I'm currently writing right now, that's the first script I'm writing after they've been born. So I was a little worried about it. I'm managing so far. Sure, once in a while they come in and disturb and they want to play and things like that. I've been able to largely manage because I'm also very... I'm not a temperamental writer. I'm a very disciplined, regimented writer in that sense. For me, it's like I wake up in the morning, and I'd say 9:30, 10, whatever it is, I start writing, and then I'll write till about 5, 6.
Wow.
And then rinse, repeat. So it's almost like going to office. It's almost like a 9 to 5 job when I'm writing. I've been able to manage because I'm not the type that mood nahi hai, main nahi likhunga. Mood hai ya na ho. Matlab, you have to sit and write. It's a job. Also, the reason I'm able to do that is people keep asking me, what about a writer's block? What about when you're just stuck and things like that?
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, the reason I don't usually have that problem is that I kind of watch the whole film in my head, sometimes with as much detail as this actor will have this expression in their face, therefore they won't need to speak a line more than this and things like that. So almost down to that detail, I see it in my head before I write. That's the process where I get my writer's block. That's the process where I get stuck. That developing a film in my head and fleshing it out in my head, sometimes I get an idea and I feel it's great and I start trying to flesh it out in my head. And there I don't push myself. I don't treat it like a 9 to 5 job. Sometimes, there's just no flow of thoughts. There's nothing coming.
Exactly.
And then this what I call creative constipation. And then you let it be, you take your mind off it. You either move to another story in your head or you just go play a game of tennis or whatever it is. So that process can vary anywhere from sometimes something starts flowing and in 2 nights, sometimes in a span of 2 nights, you have a whole story ready, start to finish. Sometimes it takes months. And there are certain stories that I thought of 10, 15 years back that I have the entire first half ready, but I'm just stuck. So then I don't push it. I'm saying, it's stuck. What can you do now?
Nice.
So it's only when I've seen the whole film in my head where sometimes it's taken me months, sometimes weeks, sometimes a couple of days, but I've now seen the whole film in my head and I have, all the blanks in place. That's when I start writing. However, I am writing for the first time right now a film where I do have the beginning, middle and end. I know where it's going. I know the arcs. I know the characters well. But there are massive chunks that I've left blank in my head. And I'm trying to discover as I'm writing. So this is a slightly new process for me. So we'll see how I'm able to manage that with having the kids around. I'm about 25 pages in. I haven't gotten stuck so far. But I might at some point.
This is the part where I go thu.
yeah, touch wood.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, I have to ask you this question because I feel like every creative person goes through it. But where are you on the 1 to 10 scale as far as self-doubt is concerned?
Absolutely no self-doubts when I'm writing because I'm clearly excited by something. So at that point, I'm not worried about how many people are going to like this. Will this become a hit? And will this become a blockbuster? It's like, hey, I love this. I can't wait to put it down on paper. And then it starts kicking in slowly when you're, sending it out to people or giving narrations and at that point, if someone doesn't like it or someone says, I'm not sure this will work, at that point, self-doubt kicks in, obviously. And then you fight it. You knew that there was something deep within that called out to you, that story, and you want to go make it. And you hope that there are enough people out there who like you will resonate with it too. So at that point, I think the most self-doubt happens when you watched your film. I'm the kind of filmmaker that sits on, there's no one right way of doing it, depending on the film, to each his or her own. But I am the kind of filmmaker that sits on, every line of dubbing, especially the smaller characters and most definitely the lead actors and things like that. I sit on, I like sitting with my composer when we're doing background score, not songs so much, but background score. I sit on the mix, I sit on everything. So you've watched the film 1,500 times by the time I sit on, every cut of edit, and I sit and have long discussions with my editor. 1 or 2 cuts in between, I let him be, and then we'll come back in and we start fighting over the film and things like that. So I'm the kind of filmmaker that's watched my film 1,500 times before it comes out. Once you've crossed about the 500, 600 mark, at that point, someone comes and tells you something, you can't not be affected by it because you've lost judgment.
Yes.
Especially when it's a comedy scene. After about 10 times, you're not going to be laughing. And then you've seen it another 490 times. And you're like, someone comes and says something, or you're very sensitive at that point. Vulnerable is the word. Where you're showing somebody the scene and somebody's not laughing. They're like, wait, why are they not laughing? Is it not working anymore? And things like that. So yeah, it's... I think those are the times. But not at all when I'm writing, and not at all when I'm on a set making a film. There's just confidence and excitement and enthusiasm oozing. So on a set, you'll never see me doubt myself or look rattled. It's more in post-production and in that process of pitching a film, getting it greenlit and things like that. So yeah.
And do you have a sounding board, a creative person, or maybe even your partner who you like, you share the script and say, what do you think? Tell now.
I do. Not my partner so much, because she will give me a very, very, very layman take on it, because she doesn't watch too many films. She's a very, very average film watcher, in the sense that she can only stomach Disney films. She can't stomach any kind of suspense, tension, not even dramatic tension in a love story. She definitely can't stomach gore. So she's a very, very average film watcher. She like practically watches Disney films and the very light-hearted rom-coms and things like that.
No wonder you got it when I said, look, I want to watch a film, but I don't have the stomach. And you said, watch it in parts. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now I know how you understood immediately.
I have someone like that at home. She's yet to watch the film, by the way. She's not watched The Girlfriend, and she refuses to.
Fair point.
I will get triggered to the point that I can't handle it, so I'm not going to watch it. I did get her to read the script, and she was very unsuspecting at that point. She had no idea what the script was about. So I finished writing it, and I said, I mean, I didn't think I'd get that kind of a reaction from her, because I hadn't written anything that was triggering before this. So I don't think she saw it coming, and I didn't see it coming that she would react this much. I was like, hey, end of the day, it's my script. It's not like she's watching some other film, and she's not even watching it. She's only going to be reading it. But she read it and she was pale-faced, and she said, do not make me watch this film. I cannot stomach this film. So not my partner so much, but I have a set of friends. We have this little camaraderie where on one hand I have Venla Kishore, Adivisesh, Sujit and myself. We're a bit of a gang. So usually we're throwing it at each other, whatever we're writing or cooking at that point. If there's a story that we're going to start writing, sometimes I give them like a half an hour narration and I'm like, what do you think? Or I usually personally prefer finishing my first draft and then sending it to them, and I get feedback from them and I try and understand how they're reacting to it and things like that. And I have Samantha on the other hand. I usually, whatever I'm writing, whatever I'm sitting and ideating on, I usually bounce it off her and try and get an opinion from her. I think she has fantastic judgment. So I really value her judgment on things. So yeah, I have my own little system. The Girlfriend was the first one I went beyond that circle and sent it to a few more people, because I knew that I was making something that was written out of secondhand empathy. I've not lived the life of a woman even for an hour, and end of the day, I didn't want to get it wrong. So I did send it to a few people outside of these 5 people that I usually send everything to. And I have, for the last 5 years, I've had an AD who's worked with me called Aditya. He's more family, more a friend than an AD now. So he's usually someone I bounce everything off. He started out as the one sitting and typing as I'm dictating.
Oh, wow.
Got into this habit of, I'm like, do you really think it's working? Why don't you read what we've just typed and tell me if it's working and things like that. So he's now become a bouncing board as well. So yeah, there are a few.
That's really lovely.
The Girlfriend was the only one that I sent to. The first draft, I remember sending it to almost 12 to 15 women in my, some of them have nothing to do with cinema.
Right.
Just to get a feedback, to know that if I'm getting it right. To make sure that I wasn't getting it completely wrong.
Right.
Because I was telling the story from her point of view, from Booma's point of view. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so actor, writer, director, I mean, what is left to do? And don't say take a proper vacation, Shezzi.
Yes, I'd like one to know I've kind of dived right into my script right away. I did turn lyricist for the first time with this film, with The Girlfriend. There was a song we released called Rei Lolo Tala Sitara. I didn't write the lyrics for the Telugu version. I had written the poetry that comes in between for the Tamil, Telugu and the Hindi versions. For the Hindi version, ironically, I ended up writing the lyrics myself because I didn't know who to turn to, I didn't know who to go to, and there was a bit of a time crunch. So I was like, haan, main likh deta hoon. So,
fantastic.
So yeah, it's called Chand Baki Hai Zara Sa in Hindi, that song. And I ended up writing the lyrics and the poetry for that one. So I've turned lyricist now, but I don't intend to keep doing it. I'd rather leave it to the pros.
But is there one secret thing you're hoping now? I really want to do this. Suddenly, where are we going to see you on the tennis court professionally?
It is. I'm not kidding. I'm not even ashamed to say this because I think most men will relate to this, and I don't think they'll judge. Some of the women might judge us, but the lights are off and I'm in my bed and I haven't slept yet. I start visualizing how I'm playing Wimbledon or how I'm in a double century partnership with Rahul Ravindran and then things like that. So those are, I think, fantasies that we men will never grow out of. I'd love to, but I don't think it's possible anymore. I would have loved to have been an Olympian. That would have been incredible. I think I would have, yeah. So those things aren't going to happen now, clearly. As far as things that I can do, I do have some dreams. At some point, I want to take time off my film career, or if I'm forced to, I run out of opportunities at some point, I would like to work with the government to set up a grassroots sporting model, a sports model, and create catchment areas in different districts where we're able to get talented kids, spot them at a young age, and get them exposed to world-class coaching and world-class nutrition in their chosen sport. I would like to work closely with the state government at some point and sort of spearhead that. I don't want to get into politics, I'm not interested, but I would like to work with the government as a freelance consultant maybe or whatever and spearhead a project where we're setting up catchment areas for talent and grassroots level sports facilities. That is one. And the other thing I think I would love to do at some point in my life is be a teacher. I just love that profession.
I mean, we saw a little bit of it, and
I ended up
it was fantastic.
living that fantasy out through the film, through the girlfriend. But yeah, when I was working in Bombay, I used to be a guest lecturer in an institute, in a management institute where they were teaching. It was a postgraduate program in media management studies, in media marketing specifically. So I used to be a guest lecturer there because I was working in media and I was, I'm an MBA in marketing.
Yeah.
So I loved it. It's just amazing. I was pretty young myself at that point. I think I was about 24, 25 at that point. And I was teaching students who were like 19, 20, 21, 22. Some of them were as old as me. But I loved it.
So you were hanging out with them after class for a beer or something?
Not much. Bombay is so fast. And I was, it was something that I was doing on the side. So not much, but I just loved interacting with students. And I remember when I quit my job and came to Chennai to try cinema, I wanted to keep some cash coming in. So I'd taken up this job as a part-time soft skills trainer for new recruits in Cognizant.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a freelance thing I was doing and I loved it. And a lot of these youngsters would come from rural backgrounds and things like that. So it was sort of like to groom them right in terms of communication skills for a corporate environment. And I loved it. It's just amazing to interact with young minds. What I would really like to do is go teach English and history for primary school.
Oh, wow.
That's always been a dream. So hopefully someday that will happen too. So,
but I think that would be really cool. English and history are cool subjects also.
My favorite subjects in school. So
same.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Okay. So yeah, I'd love to go teach those two subjects for primary school. Specifically primary school because they're so young and impressionable and it's both a very, very serious responsibility. But I'm sure it'll really, really warm my heart to be able to shape them and yeah.
Are you actively saying that I want there to be like an active, conscious move towards direction and focus solely on writing and take a backseat from acting?
Andala Rakshasi released in 2012. It released in August 2012. Sometime around November 2012, a few months after it had released, I was already going out and pitching Sheila Saw to an actor. So it's always what I wanted to be, a filmmaker. And it just took me this long to finally get to make my own film. And the minute I turned filmmaker, it was an automatic choice. It wasn't even something I was giving up. I was very clear in my head. And I immediately said, I'm not going to take up lead roles anymore. I still, believe it or not, continue to get some.
I believe.
Unless something's very art for the sake of art, very, very experimental art house cinema, not really interested in. Because it's a massive investment when you take on a lead role. It's at least 5-6 months of work, after which, you need to put yourself out there, promote the film. You're the hero of the film. You can't wash your hands off it. So you need to go out there, put yourself out there and things like that. So it's a good 8-9 month commitment when you take up a lead role, at least, bare minimum. So that's a luxury. That's not the kind of time I have, because that's going to eat into my writing time and my flexibility as a filmmaker to wait for an actor's dates and quickly go to the set when it's possible. So lead roles, no, but when I do have the time, I'm really enjoying this phase as an actor where I'm taking up these interesting roles, or I'm just working in films where a filmmaker's a friend and I just want to be on the set and observe them and learn from them, or it's a really big film and the paycheck is great and I'm like, hey, awesome, it's going to pay 1 year of rent, so let me go do the film. So I'm enjoying that. And the truth is that somewhere into my acting career, I was really pigeonholed and straitjacketed as a sincere lover boy. I kept getting only those roles. Yeah. So I also got tired of... Now I'm able to have fun. Like sometimes I go play a guy with very grey shades, and sometimes I'm going and playing an ex-cop in Jigra, and sometimes I'm playing a 92-year-old in Shyam Singh Roy. So it's good fun. I'm really having a ball right now, and I'd rather have this acting career than just playing the same sincere lover boy in every film I do.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
you mentioned 1 year's rent and everything. So I have to ask you now that you're also, obviously you have to look at the money side of it as well. My thoughts are how, whether it's art house cinema or mass films, there is a line you have to straddle. Mm-hmm. What is your gyroscope like? How do you find that line?
As an actor or as a filmmaker?
As a filmmaker.
As an actor, it's pretty simple. I mean,
not my monkey, not my circus. You give me to do, I act.
Yeah.
But as a director who has responsibilities, is it also on your head, the numbers and all of that?
So this is what I do. I don't restrict myself in terms of, but this is not going to be commercial, nothing. If I'm excited by a story, I start developing it in my head. And if it does develop, which means there's something there. Like sometimes I've had great ideas that I try to develop in my head, and I realize the content's not enough to hold people's attention for 2.5 hours. It probably make a great novella or a short film, but it's not going to make a great 2.5 hour feature length film. So then I abandon it. So at that point, all I'm thinking is this a story I'm excited by? And when I flesh it out over 2.5 hours or 2 hours or whatever it is it holding? Is it still something I'm excited by? That's all I'm thinking.
And nobody irritates you about numbers?
So that's the thing. So, and then I go write it, right? There are 2-3 scripts that I've written and kept. These things start coming into the picture when I'm going and setting up the film, right? That's when it comes into the picture. Yeah. And there are a couple of films I haven't been able to set up because of these reasons, because somebody else didn't believe it would do numbers, or I myself believed that it wouldn't do the kind of numbers that I would need to make the film. Sometimes you have scripts that cannot be made economically, but you feel the content is niche, that it would be a massive risk on the producer. It might not be able to make its money back. So where I restrict myself is that if I get a sense that something is not going to reach a wide section of audiences, I don't stop myself from making that film. I tell myself, okay, this is what it is. So you sit down with the producer, you thrash out the numbers, and you make sure you're able to make this film in a certain number that still makes it a safe proposition. And then hell or high water, you stick to that number. That's where I restrict myself. So sometimes I know that I can make a better film if I can get 5 crores more. It's okay. I don't need those 5 crores. I'd rather make it in this budget, because it then gives my producer a chance to make money back. Right. So that's where I restrict myself, not when it comes to the kind of stories I want to tell. And I keep getting given this advice, and I do have a certain greed as a filmmaker, which is, my greed isn't that I want to make big films. I have some scripts that will be big films, and I'd love to go make them at some point, but it came from me getting excited by that story, not from I want to go make a big film, right? So my greed is that there might be a story I'm excited by. I want to go make it. I'm not greedy that, no, I want to make a film that will make these many crores, therefore my salary will become this, and things like that. My greed is, I want to go tell the story. Can I find a mainstream actor and a mainstream producer to make the story with, so that it gets a wider reach than it would otherwise? Right. That's my greed. So these are a
fair greed to have.
Yeah. So these are the things. Like, for example, getting to make The Girlfriend with Rashmika Mandanna got us so many incremental eyeballs than it would have.
I mean, she was fantastic, yeah.
Exactly.
Like, what was that?
On one hand, she was just incredible in it. She was absolutely fantastic in it. On the other hand, her popularity and the fact that I'm making it with an A-lister gets me far more eyeballs than it would have otherwise.
Yes.
So that greed I do have. I want to go make a girlfriend with a Rashmika Mandanna and a Geeta Arts. I don't want to go make a girlfriend with a newcomer or a new producer. So that's my greed.
Is there any kind of word of advice that you would give to a budding filmmaker who's stepping into the industry now, and you have a fair amount of experience in the space, and maybe there are things that you wish you were informed when you were just stepping and starting out?
There's a long list. We need another 1 hour podcast for it. But I think the most crucial piece of advice I can give a filmmaker is, luckily, a certain maturity that I had even before I made the decision. And I think it's very important because I do see a lot of people who haven't thought that through. It's great to have dreams in your eyes, and it's great to be excited, and it's great to say, hey, I'm going to go I'm going to dive headlong and take that risk and go try cinema. It is such a volatile profession, and 90% of your career isn't really in your hands. There's only so much planning you can do, but you're at the behest of so many other people. You're at the mercy of so many other factors aligning, so many external factors that you just cannot control, that getting a first Friday is not guaranteed in this industry. And if you do end up getting a first Friday, thanks to the digital revolution and thanks to cinema opening up and so many films getting made in a year, you might get your first Friday, but you're not guaranteed of a second Friday. And by that time, you're neck deep in. And if you want to steer around and turn and go back to a normal life, you've wasted so much time and effort and energy and money. So what I would tell people is that take a shot at cinema if you're fully confident that you would be happier being a complete failure in cinema than being a success in some other field. Because the arithmetic chances, the probability of you being a failure in cinema is
high,
is far greater than you being a success. And it doesn't even have to do with your talent and the effort you will put in. That sometimes means nothing. So if it is success that you're chasing, and if you're going to turn 40 and regret that you chased cinema all your life and now you're 40, you've crossed, you're way past your prime and your youth, and you have nothing to show for it, it can be a very dark place. It can demoralize you. Don't come. If driving a good car, if sending your kids to a good school, if living in a good house and eating good food is important to you, you might come to cinema and have those things more than you ever imagined. That's the beauty of cinema. One Friday can change your life. But the chances of that happening are an ice cube's chance in hell. So don't come to cinema if you're not fully prepared to be a proper failure in life. And everybody around you who keeps pointing that out and telling you is not going to affect you. You will have a smile on your face that, you know what, to hell with it. I'd rather spend my life trying and being a failure in cinema than being a success in something else. That's the one advice I think I'll give.
I think that's fantastic advice. Also, cancel. No, fair enough. I think that's really, really sensible, rational, balanced advice, because everybody has these rose-tinted spectacles that they like, oh, I will become hero, I will become star. And yeah, it is quite a...
I know so many people in cinema who've given cinema 20 years of their life, who've turned 40, some of them have turned 50. They're still assistant directors.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to make their first film. They still, every once in a while, after every film, they harbor hopes and they take a break and say, no, I'm now going to take my script and do the rounds of producers' offices. And then a few months in, they have bills to pay, so they come back and become an assistant director again. And yet, I know some of them who are happy, who are blissfully peaceful.
Because I want to tell a story, that's it.
They'd rather die trying than regret that they didn't even try.
How beautiful, yeah.
And if you're that person, great. You won't have regrets. You will enjoy the process in itself. And if you romanticize all the years and decades you've given to cinema, and it'll put a smile on your face, great. But it is not practical, and it can hit you very, very in very dark corners of your soul. And that is the reality. So, yeah.
This conversation has taken a very dark turn, but I'm very grateful. I'm enjoying my voice like this, so I'm going all like James Brown kind of things. Okay, I want to wrap it up with one question that I ask all my guests who come here, because this is a podcast that highlights the vagaries of 21st century living and how to hack it. Is there one particular life hack that Rahul Ravindran swears by, which has really helped and held him in good stead, which you would like to share, and maybe it could benefit somebody who's watching?
There's a few, but I think my motto in life, what I live by, my credo is understand before you judge, assimilate before you react, and observe before you respond. And that helps me. It helps me be more empathetic. It helps me be kinder. It helps me be a cheerful, positive energy in the lives of the people that are close to me. I think that's very important, especially in this era where all of us have a platform, and I completely understand it. I think if I was much younger when social media had come about, I would have had the same tendencies, which is to, you're valued by your opinions, and everybody wants to put their opinion out there. Great, I'm not saying don't put your opinion out there, but think it through.
Don't be a trigger happy son of a gun.
Pretty much, yeah.
Nice.
And since I just finished making The Girlfriend and it's out, and that is the topic, I can also give you a life hack when it comes to relationships, which is that treat your partner how you would like to be treated by her or him, and don't treat your partner how you wouldn't like to be treated by the other person. This one simple rule, I stop, I take a deep breath, I ask myself, what you're about to say, would you like it if that is told to you? What you're about to do, would you like it if that is done to you? And 50% of the times I don't say it, I don't do it, not because I'm not putting on an act, because it is a way of life.
Yes.
I don't want to do to another person what I wouldn't like done to me. So, yeah.
Fantastic. If there is, in this entire conversation, in fact, if you ask me, if there is anything we are going to take away, I hope this is the thing that we take away. Be nice, be kind, just as much as you would like to be treated, exactly as you would like to be treated.
Empathy is the highest form of knowledge.
Rahul Ravindran, you have been an absolute delight to talk to. You saw how from Rahul, so I suddenly become very cocky, like Rahul Ravindran.
Yeah, but please cut the sir. I've been asking you that from before the interview. I hate being called sir. Yeah,
this herogiri I'm suddenly doing, where is it coming from?
I get massive imposter syndrome when somebody calls me sir. It's like, I haven't earned it. Why is this person calling me sir? So,
I'm very proper like that, that's why. But I hope you enjoyed our conversation.
I loved it. I did.
Fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed having this chat with you as well.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Likewise.
very grateful that you gave us time today. I wish you all the success, and I really hope that there is more and more content on the lines of The Girlfriend, in fact, that comes out of you. And I hope you appreciate how I have not kept pestering you and saying, sir, what you're writing, tell no, sir.
I appreciate it, yes. Although it's nothing to do with The Girlfriend, it's not like that at all. So, yeah.
Oh, now tell no little bit.
No, just there's two that I'm going to be working on very soon. One of them is a very serious action drama, which it's not action for the sake of action, but it tries to understand the anatomy of violence. It tries to explore how something can escalate all the way to violence, and sort of strip it down and understand the whys and the nuts and bolts of it. That's one, and the other one is a very sweet, feel good, happy.
I'll enjoy this one, I think.
Yeah, warm in the heart, kind of a, chocolate milk for the soul kind of a film. That's the other one. That's the one I'm writing right now.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I'm very excited. As I'm writing it, I'm about 28 pages in. That's the last page we finished writing when I came here. About an hour before I left. So yeah, I'm really liking how it's shaping up. And having written two scripts back to back, like The Girlfriend and the other one that I told you about, which were pretty dark emotionally.
This one feels light on your soul.
I was like, hey, this is my zone. I'm loving this. I'm deriving so much joy out of writing this film, of people being nice to each other, people falling in love with each other, and yeah.
How refreshing! How shocking!
So yeah, I think yeah. All those who keep telling me, Anna, make another Chila. So I really like Chila. So I think they're gonna like this one a lot better than Chila. So yeah. Yeah, it's
Wonderful.
like a really sweet, feel-good film that hits all the right places in the heart.
I'm very excited about this. And, I have great hope when there are filmmakers such as yourself. I have great hope for society because of the content that's coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you
It's
for
so
all that
lovely.
you're doing.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, and I'm 180% certain that you did, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, drop your comments and your likes and share, of course. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.